Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're dialing in from. Thank you for joining this webinar. Or maybe you're just watching it online on our YouTube channel after the event. Welcome. This is a webinar on AI enhanced organization design. And today we're focusing on local and central government. If you haven't met us before, my name's Nick Richmond. I'm a director and the practice lead for organization design. And Tricordant is a leading organizational consultancy. We work in partnership with our clients to co-create healthy and successful organizations. So we're seeking to make a positive difference in society and to support leaders to be the best version of themselves. And today I'm joined by my friend, Tim de Boer, Chief Executive of Reconfig. So Tim, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Nick. My name is Tim de Boer. I'm the CEO of Reconfig. Reconfig is an Oslo-based software company, and we're working worldwide with partners like Nick at Tricordant. About 6 years ago, the founders in Oslo built the first prototype with the support of the Norwegian government. It was a huge Excel spreadsheet, but then we turned it into a web-enabled AI-powered tool, which is now used for transformations across the world. We're very happy to partner with Tricordant and happy to be here.
Thanks, Tim. So in a mo, Tim and I are going to share the provocation. I'll cover some of the rationale for AI enhanced org design, while Tim will demonstrate our approach and the product. Please write your questions into chat and we'll pick up some of these either during that time or during the panel's discussion. You'll also notice that we've got a how to get started within your organization that we'll end on. But first, a couple of offers. Book a meeting with us before the 31st of January, and what we'll offer is that we'll create a digital twin of your organization to explore during that meeting. All we need is a high-level purpose of your organization, or maybe it's a business unit of that organization you want to focus on, the kind of high-level strategy and the top 2 levels of job titles of that organization. From those 3 simple pieces of information, we can create that digital twin of your organization to demonstrate how our approach can dramatically improve the productivity and impact of the operating model. Now, in one instance, we're able to find up to about 46% of head office functions could be automated, retrained, and redeployed to focus on other strategic initiatives. So have a think about that and reach out to us before the 31st of January, please. Second offer is for those who really want to get in their hands dirty in this and really get into it and understand how to deliver AI enhanced organization design. Then we're doing some training in January again on the 28th of January in London, face-to-face, 9 until 5 p.m. And what you'll learn there is how to assess the full potential of your organization, because you will be working on your own organization. It'll be the same information that I shared previously that you'll need. How to redesign your organization to enhance productivity while also creating meaningful work for your people and for yourself. And then how to leverage that power of AI and people's creativity to scale the transformation successfully. So those are our 2 offers. To segue into our provocation, I want to start us with a poll. And the poll is, how frequently are you using generative AI? And there's 4 questions, or 1 question and 4 answers to that. The first is very frequently, or frequently, occasionally, and then not at all. Very, very frequently is really what we mean by you're using generative AI every day, multiple times a day, maybe even using different systems. So what you should be able to see there is mostly people are occasionally using it or not at all. And then a few people are into the frequently or very frequently space. So we've got, what, about 67, 70, about 71% are occasionally to not at all. Now, Microsoft did a similar survey. They surveyed quite a few people across the globe. They got 31,000 respondents across all generations and across the globe. And what that survey really said was that AI at work is already here. And many knowledge workers are already using generative AI. They're reluctant to admit it. They're bringing their own tools to work. And of course, that generates a whole series of questions around the ethics and security and safety and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, what's driving this is people saying that they're struggling with the pace of work and the volume of work. They feel burnt out. They feel overloaded. And Microsoft undertook a bit more research looking at those who work with Microsoft 365 apps. And they found that users spend about 60% of their time on emails, chats, and meetings, and only 40% of their time on more value-focused creation apps like Word and PowerPoint. So leaders are worried that they lack a plan and a vision to implement that AI. And that's where we think Tri-Coordinate and Reconfig come in, because we can help leaders to prioritize, to envision, to create that integrated operating model. Now, from research, we found that there are some top use cases for generative AI across government, and here's 8 of them. Everything from customer service automation, often that's a chatbot or some type of generative AI bot that works with people and answers various questions and helps guide people to the right place. Or maybe it's real-time tracking and predictive analytics for public health. We saw some of that during COVID, where there was websites that were demonstrating the spread of COVID through the UK, in fact, the different variants of COVID as well. Fraud detection and prevention. So I know that the police, Companies House, HMRC are working together to think about how to detect and prevent fraud. Administrative processes being automated. So this could be your more simple cases, maybe going through the DWP or HMLR or one of the other organizations, and automating those more simple cases to allow people to focus on the more complex cases. Then cybersecurity, of course, enhanced public safety. So this may be tracking crime and monitoring patterns to allow the police to understand where they should place their people. And then traffic management in smart cities to ensure people are flowing through the cities, getting to the right places at the right time. Smart policy making. This could be as simple as gathering a whole lot of data that would have traditionally taken months, weeks and months, and maybe only now taking a few minutes to inform those policies and being able to iterate those policies very quickly. So those are 8 use cases that I've just cantered through very quickly. But I thought what we could do is maybe just share a few draw-dropper use cases in the next few slides to help us recognize the sheer impact of AI and work. And the first one is from a local government. It's from the Barking and Dagenham Borough Council. So there's many chatbots out there. And this one example, in this particular council, has a contact center that gets about 40,000 customer queries a month. And in 6 months, their AI assistant handled 10,000 of those, and that achieved that 533% return on investment. And in fact, they also had a 67% increase in customer satisfaction. So a real impact that AI assistant had. Across the pond in the US, the Department of Treasury used AI-enhanced fraud detection processes, including machine learning, to prevent and to recover over $4 billion in the fiscal year to 2024. And similar efforts in the UK, I understand, have saved around about £2 billion. And the last one here is, in a very immediate and personal example, Kent County Council used predictive analytics to prevent homelessness. So those who received proactive contact reduced that homelessness to 0.04% of people. So, and those who didn't receive that proactive care, it was still hovered around about 40%. So it was a real logarithmic difference. And the difference between that was because of lack of resources. They just didn't have enough people. They didn't want to have a control group, but because of that, the lack of resources, they couldn't cover everyone. And so they, by default, ended up having a bit of a control group there. But you can see that logarithmic change that AI can have on an organization and its processes. So these case studies prompt the questions: where are you on your AI journey? Are you keeping pace with others and peers? And how do you go from individual use cases like we've explained here to an orchestra of AI and people creating a symphony of value? Now, as an org designer, I like to use an example of going to breakfast as a way of explaining organization design and the importance of interaction and integration. So if you order a breakfast, maybe any breakfast, could be eggs, bacon, it could be coffee, some beans, maybe you like some sausages as well. What you want is that all of that to arrive at once so you can have a wonderful breakfast experience. What you don't want is your eggs to arrive and then one piece of bacon, then some beans, and then someone else's sausages that you hadn't ordered, and then a cup of coffee maybe slung at you as you walk out the door, frustrated that you haven't had a great breakfast experience. And the same goes for designing an integrated operating model, where AI and people are working together to create that symphony of value. The last thing you want is AI and people playing different tunes at different tempos and in different keys. That's just going to create a real racket. So there must be alignment, there must be coordination. Otherwise, complexity and variability rises, leading to waste, inefficiency, loss of trust, and of course, frustration. But Tim, tell us about the benefits of AI-powered operating models and how that might help mitigate risks in local and central government.
Thank you so much, Nick. We are looking at uncertain times. We're looking at really complicated environments. So I'm from the Netherlands, so I'm not from the UK, but I can see that across the world there is an unpredictable political climate, and it's no different in the UK. So you need to answer quickly to changing political leadership. And that requires answering questions that you can't predict today, you can't predict the questions that will be asked today that were not around yesterday. So you need to go through vast amounts of data very quickly and providing insights. Now, that's the political side. The citizen side, and we call them customers on this side, on this slide, they have more expectations from any organization, including governmental organizations. So if you go shopping online, you already have your profile stored somewhere, you know exactly during the checkout, and it's all very, very customer friendly. Now, as a citizen of the Netherlands, if I want to renew my driving license, it's not as friendly as if I were to buy some groceries and have them delivered at home. So, but that's what I expect. That's what citizens expect. And of course, and specifically talking about AI, we have regulatory and compliance pressure. So AI creates regulatory and compliance issues. So with GDPR and with the AI Act, etc. So you need to comply with that. But it also helps. It also can help you to check the whole regulatory framework and see if you are compliant in every aspect. So proactively monitoring compliance. Of course, we see that technology is going really fast, so AI can also help you, and that's particularly the topic of today, to accelerate your services, the way you deliver things, but also even do different things that you could not do before. So you can't do everything at once, but about this whole session is about making the right choices, where to make the bet that will leverage AI best for your particular purpose. And what we see is that, and I'll give you a number in the next slide, but what we see is that you can really optimize your productivity. Now, that means that we need to think about what are we going to do with people that will see that their jobs are changing, because you can do the same amount of work with less people, but that doesn't mean you're going to let go all those people. It means that you can reallocate them to do different tasks. So maybe Nick, if you can go to the next slide. So sorry, there's still one conceptual slide before we actually go into the tool. We always say that organization design starts with strategy. In the old days, sometimes we used to go with looking at the bottlenecks and then try to remove them by changing the organizational design. But nowadays, we really start with the vision, and we call it idealized design. And I will show you how it works also in the tool. But it really starts with a vision, like what is the to be state of your organization. What we then do is we look at your current state, and of course there is a gap, and then we need to do a roadmap. So really it's looking at strategy, that's the mission, that's the strategic must-win battles, the things that you really have to do. It's about your people, but your people are now working alongside with artificial intelligence. And that's different from how it used to be, because in the old days we talked about automation, but now you really should consider a generative AI agent as a colleague, because they make mistakes just like humans, because they learn just like humans. But unlike humans, they are so fast and they can work 24/7. So it's really about productivity. But it can only work if you, as Nick said, have the orchestration. There's nothing wrong with experimentation, but as leaders of governmental organizations, you should have a vision around your to-be state, where you want to go, and how it all fits together. So you're talking about an orchestra of AI and people creating a symphony of value, and I'm going to show you how that's going to work. Next slide. So we said that we're talking about productivity gain and people in the organization. So what we've prepared for today is a organizational digital twin. So probably you're familiar with the concept of a digital twin, like you have a factory and you simulate all the assets in the factory and then you can control it. We do something similar with organizations. So we call it an organizational digital twin. And particularly, we prepared this organizational digital twin to calculate the AI potential. So for this demo, we created Demo City Council with synthetic data. By the way, synthetic data is data that is made up, but it follows the same statistical patterns as real data, and it's inspired, of course, by real cases. But we created this Demo City Council, simulating 37 management role, representing 20,000 workers with a total capacity of 3 million hours per month. And we calculated that 894 hours per month can be freed up through implementing AI. That's 24%. Now, the question, of course, is how do you get to that very precise number, 894? And that's where the ODT comes in, because we make a simulation of the people and we make a simulation of the tasks. And then we go, starting with the mission, creating a to-be model, including the division of work between generative AI agents and human intelligence in human beings. So if you allow me, Nick, I'm gonna share the screen, and I'm going to show you the tool. So here we are. You can see we have multiple modules, but in this case, we'll start with the define module, where we create a target operating model, starting with the mission. So at Demo City Council, we are dedicated to enhancing the quality of life for our citizens by prioritizing their needs and well-being. We focus on themes like economy, education, employment, environment, health, etc. We are the legislative branch of the city government. We enhance with citizens and stakeholders. Our commitment to excellence, empathy, respect. We strive to make it an attractive place, and this particular council employs approximately 20,000 officers, and the workforce is responsible for this wide range of services. Now, this is, of course, a demo, but it was taken from a kind of common denominator from the 20 largest cities in the UK. Now, based on this, we first go to strategy. So let's have a look what the AI is going to tell us what the strategy could be for this particular city. Strategic arenas for Demo City Council. So local economic development, concentrate on initiatives, stimulate economic growth, education and workforce development, partnering with educational institutions, environment, health, well-being, housing, urban development, transport, etc. This was generated by the AI, but of course you can override it by saying, well, we think that environment is much more important, and we put it at a higher level, or you say, well, we are not into something, but we're in something else. You can override all of this, but this is taken as the basis for the organization design, which we'll come to. Strategic vehicles like partnerships, organic growth of the services, strategic differentiators. How can you, and this is not a commercial organization, of course, but you still can have this image of how the council should service. So community-centric approach, strong partnerships, operational excellence, etc. Strategic staging, like this is a made-up case, but you could say the foundation building, strategic implementation, etc. And then here, this is about the economic logic, so revenue generation, economies of scale, sustainable practices, etc. Now, all of this can be overruled, but it's the start of the design. What do you do at the beginning of designing an organization? You look at the design criteria. So in this case, based on the mission and the strategy, we came with these design criteria. So you see here that the organizational model should prioritize initiatives that stimulate economic growth, supporting local businesses. So we got here around 8 design criteria. Now the AI can also check if it's fully correct and fully covering all your strategic things. And in this case, it says the organization model should engage with citizens and stakeholders to create unique value proposition to foster community support. Well, obviously that was not in here, so we can add it, or we can say, well, no, thank you. We are gonna keep those design criteria that you already have. But this is an example of where AI is helping the design process. So we're not only talking about AI-powered organizations, we're also talking about the AI empowerment of the design process, and this was just an example. Configurations, well, in this case, it says it's a missionary organization. I would challenge, but you could say it's a machine organization, or maybe in some cases a professional organization, or even divisionalized. But those fans of Mintzberg would maybe agree that it could be a mission organization because you work for the people. So that's the typical missionary definition. It's a hybrid, so it's not just geographic or specific functions, it's both. And now we're going to look at the design process where we see the functions. So here we have function, stimulate economic growth, enhance education, etc. You can build the units at a high level, executive leadership, economic development, sustainability, environment. So these are all units. Authority metrics, roles, role allocation, and then ultimately you have a high-level org chart. And then what you can do is you can compare, based on the design criteria, the various scenarios. But before we do that, we first go very deep into the details of the organization. And this is something that we can, and that was an offer that Nick put in place. We can do that for your organization, and that's an offer that will help you to see the target operating model for an organization like yourself. So as I said, this is based on synthetic data. So John Smith is the managing director. He doesn't exist. We just use him as a placeholder to talk about the organization. So you have a chief of staff, you have a managing director, director of finance, etc. Now, based on the distribution of how organizations typically allocate their time, there is a button here that says generate synthetic time utilization. I've done that when I prepared the demo. So if we go, for example, to environment, and we see here a lady, Lily. She's responsible for sustainability. So she spent 20% of her time in waste management, air quality monitoring, 20% green space development, and climate mitigation. So that means that we now have a very detailed organizational digital twin with the people, and I've only represented, I've only put in 40 and not 39 roles representing 20,000 people, but we have a very detailed allocation of time. Now, that means that we can look at the activities and here you can see the outsourcing potential, or you can see here, let me check a few that have actually a good value here. Well, we spoke about here, for example, financial management, budget planning and control. It's a support function, and it's about planning and allocating budgets. You can 30% outsource it. Why is that? Because budget planning and allocation can be partially outsourced, especially data analysis and reporting aspects. But of course, the final decision making should be done in-house, so that's outsourcing. You can also look at the automation potential, and that's the 60%. And that's something that I need to do a little bit like this. So then it gives you the explanation that it involves strategic decision making, which requires understanding of organizational priorities and human judgment. So that would make it a lower percentage. However, automation can assist in data collection, analysis, and generating initial budget proposals based on historical data and predictive analysis. So for all your activities that we now have simulated here, you got something similar. And then what we can do is say, well, let's have a look at how AI agents can help. So here we're talking about, for example, strategic planning, community needs analysis, and that's like a 30% automation potential. And it would, based on your the salaries of people, that would make this saving. But if I go like, for example, asset management, and I do here facility maintenance and operations, that's probably going to be a big one. Then we have here 616 hours with a 50% automation potential. And it's almost 5,000 hours with a salary like this. Now, this is not only about savings, because we may use that word a bit too often. It's about reallocating people's intelligence, people's capabilities to do other things. So the system can also help with generating suggestions on how to relocate people. But I think for now, this is giving you a flavor of what you can do to use AI to design an organization. And it should be an AI-powered organization. So that helps you to come to staggering numbers like this, where you don't have to do it overnight, but it gives you a good feeling of what the potential of AI is for your organization. With that, I'm going to give it back to Nick.
So Tim, there's a question that's come in. There's a question that's come in our chat is about how the potentials arrived at. How's that generated those potentials of automation?
Yeah, it's indeed a very good question. What we do is we use general purpose AI. So we can use, for example, OpenAI. And what we then do is put it into the system. So I'm gonna show you. What we then do, of course, is we build that whole overview of all the different functions, but I'm going to show you here. So here we see the reasoning, right? So we have here why it is, and I'm set the reasoning here. So it says here that I'm going to take a good one. Let me check. I want to have something that makes customer service request management. Sorry, just a second. I'm too low. Well, anyhow, asset management, facility management. We spoke about that one. Now it says here involves tasks such as routine inspections. Now this is simply something that you can also do with ChatGPT, right? You can say, in my organization, I have a function asset management, I have an activity facility maintenance and operation support, and then you can ask ChatGPT what could be the potential for outsourcing or the potential for AI enhancement or for AI automation. Now, the beauty of the tool is that we built that whole model where you do the calculation and you end up with these kinds of numbers. So in short, the answer is it's an API we have with a general purpose AI. We put it into our system. You can override it. But the beauty is that you have this overall model, like designing the organization.
Yeah, and just to reinforce the fact that actually you may start with simulation data, but what you then do is you add further data to make it more and more a representation of your organization to become that digital twin. So it starts as simulation and then ends up as a digital twin of your organization. So that's close enough to reality that you can then run those scenarios and see what the options are. There's another question that's come in from Teresa. I don't know if Teresa, if you want to just come off mute and ask the question outright. Otherwise, I can just read it off the screen. Your choice. What would you like to do?
I can read it out if you wish.
Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, I've said that I'm working with clients on skills-based organizations, and I'm interested in how this platform and what it does aligns to that operating model. So I'm thinking as well around AI's skill proficiency for the tasks that are being recommended in comparison, say, to the skill proficiency of employees currently. And as AI is changing so much, that proficiency is going to increase as the AI gets better. But then there's also the aspect of the supply and demand of those skills in the organization, and how that links to strategic workforce planning and then creating your job architecture. So I'm thinking the data that comes into skills-based platforms is updated normally at least on a monthly basis. So how would you then tie that in with updates to your org design? So there's quite a few questions there, I know.
You want me to go first, or you want to answer?
Yeah, you go first. I'll add something in.
So strategic workforce planning is really a biggie, and it helps if you have a target operating model. So that helps you to design like how much of which kind of capability do we need. So that's the strategic workforce planning in itself. Now, our tool does not yet support supply in the market. So if there is a scarcity of a certain job group, that's not in the tool. But there will always be questions like you just asked that will be answered by the consultants, because we're just a tool, right? We are like a hammer. Nick is the carpenter, and you need a house. So yeah, our hammer can create a target operating model using an organizational digital twin. It can be very specific about what people should be doing, but it's not doing the actual recruitment and looking at market conditions at this stage.
Yet, yeah, we know it's coming. Yeah, and just adding into that, if you remember the slide that we showed that had an image on the left-hand side of kind of a triquestrious with strategy, AI, and people on it. And that's just really reinforcing that org design is rooted in strategy, and so is strategic workforce planning. And it's that combination of working with people and bringing their knowledge and insight of the organization and what's coming down the road, and the necessary other tools that may need to be used alongside something like Reconfig at this point, together with the AI to help you to work out the supply and demand and how you're going to meet that to develop your strategic workforce plan. I mean, it's a very short answer, and the skills-based organizations, we could probably have a whole webinar on itself alone. So if it's okay, we'll just pause there for a moment. And if you want to stay on for longer afterwards, we can continue that discussion.
I've got a meeting on the project I'm working on skills-based organisations straight after this, so I can't, unfortunately.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alex, you got a question as well? Do you want to come off mute and just ask the question, or do you want to us just to answer it into that? Alex is saying the tool looks fantastic. Do you have proposed ways of working with incentives for independent consultants if we recommend the use of the system on a project we're currently working on? opportunities you are in discussions about that. Yeah, that was the question on that one.
I think I should answer that one.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, the answer is yes. Nick is an example of somebody that really understands the tool and that can use it for not only changing his own practice, but as Nick says it, he's changing the profession of organization design. Now, I joined as a late co-founder Reconfig, and I told the guys, well, this is brilliant. We can go to the likes of McKinsey or the big ones. I spent a lot of time educating these people and nothing happened. So if you're talking about independent consultants or boutique firms like Tricordant, I think that the future is with you because you can do many things that large consultancies can also do, but you can do them much faster. You can do them without an army of junior consultants. So yes, if you're interested, you can find reconfig.no and you can send us an email. We do a demo. We talk about how we can work together. It's a lot of education involved, of course, but ultimately we want to be a software company and not a consultancy company like Nick. Sometimes we are forced to do it. So I'm doing a large transformation in Saudi at this moment. But we rather work with partners like yourself and like we working very intensely with Tricordant, and that's the way it should be. So yeah, call us.
Yeah, and I was speaking to a number of large consultancies at a pharma conference a couple of weeks back, and they were certainly into the AI space, but they're very much into the single use case and making sure that use case works really well. And when I was saying, well, hang on, what about stepping back and creating an integrated operating model where AI and people are working in symphony together? They're saying, well, no one's doing that right now. And these are the biggest consultancies that I'm talking about. They weren't small consultancies, so they would have the manpower to be able to do that. And so I think there's a real opportunity to help organizations, both our own or our clients' organizations, to step back and think about how do you create that integrated operating model so that you can create that symphony of value. Another question that we're thinking about was, and it's often the one that people start off with, you know, what about me? You know, what happens about people? Do you see AI replacing people? And personally, you know, when I look at the different responses of organizations to AI, there's typically three responses. There's the replace response, and there's a financial services organization that went down that route. I think there's a lesson to learn, and I'll come back to that. There's the enhance route, so enhancing your people, and then there's the retraining route. And IKEA is a great example of retraining, where they saw that 8,500 of their customer representatives were put at risk. But they said, hang on, we really like our people. We hired them because we see lots of potential in them. Why would we be getting rid of them? Let's invest in them. And they were able to attribute that $1.4 billion additional revenue to them retraining their 8,500 people. And they put them into different areas of the business, and they could say, we think this additional revenue came because of that. Now, this other financial services organization that decided to implement AI and then reduce their staffing complement by 50%, you can just imagine how the rest of the staff that remained felt. They probably felt a little bit disheartened, at least, all the goodwill gone, wind out of their sails, demotivated. You know, oh, is AI coming for my job next? You know, and this organization is very clear that it is going to probably cut their staffing by another 50% in the next few years. And what happened with those people that left that organization is, and it's a well-known thing in the innovation space, that 62 startups spun out of that one organization to create a lot of value. So all that corporate knowledge, all that potential, all that value left that one organization and set up 62 other organizations. Now, they could have been the future BASF. And if you don't know BASF, they're a large chemicals and, mostly chemicals and engineering type business. And they allow their researchers, their R&D researchers, to research anything that they like. And then they take all those ideas through a Dragon's Den's process and invest in the best. Those that align with strategy, they keep, and those that don't, they sell off, or they allow management buyouts and that kind of stuff. So this financial service organization could have done the same thing. They could have said, let's keep the people, give them maybe a 1 or 2 years contract, and then say invest in the best solution, and taking them through a Dragon's Den process to invest in the best solutions. So all that value was lost. But there you go. It's one of those things. And then of course enhancing. There's lots of businesses that are enhancing their people, allowing them to do things much quicker. I know in the policy space, there's a lot of organizations that are investing in their policy functions with generative AI to accelerate policy development. Yeah. There's a question in chat about the only person that you've seen talking about this is Linda Gratchen. AI is part of the organization design. Yeah, I mean, maybe part, but also it has to be integrated. I like to use the metaphor of a symphony of value. And you've got to create an orchestra that works well together to create that symphony. So yes, it may be part of organization design, but it has to be thought holistically, so that the operating model that you ultimately create is an integrated operating model. Tim, what about you? What do you think to the next question about how to combine both strategic-led and constraints-led approaches to AI-enhanced org design?
Yeah, I like the way that I have to apologize first that the tool can create a suggestion that it's a linear process. So you go from A to B to Z ultimately. So, and also when I do a demo, then of course it seems like it's a very linear process. In reality, you need to look at the constraints of your organization. So if you talk about the target operating model, then initially you might think, wow, that's really interesting. And it unlocks a lot of power with your stakeholders, and I fully believe in it. But ultimately, you also need to be realistic, like, what can my organization do? So you could also reverse the process. You could also say, well, these are the constraints. What should be the service level that I can provide as a city council to my citizens? Because they can demand the world, but I have budget constraints and other constraints with my organization. So you can also do it the other way around. Now, this is the beauty of a tool, because you can do a lot of what-if analysis. You can do the assessment of the scenarios based on your target operating model. You can also say, well, this is my current organization, and we can do a survey, we can model, we can go very deep. And then you can say, well, this is what we can do, and tell political leaders that this is the reality. And at least you have like data supported evidence that this is what the current organization actually can do, and not more.
Yeah. And another one that's come in is about data feeds. What data feeds can the tool accept from the client organization and or externally? I know you've already talked about a generative AI API. Do you want to just share a little bit more, and what kind of internal system feeds you may be able to input into the platform?
Yeah, so we combine both specific information from the organization and public domain organization. But if it comes to specific information from the organization, we would like to have all the employees simply represented in the organizational digital twin. So you do a download of what have you, maybe you have SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or whatever your HR system is. Now, we need to be careful with GDPR, of course. So we can do it in two ways. We can work with synthetic data, like Peter Smith, that didn't exist in the demo that I just gave, or you can put in the real data. But I think it will help if you have the real data. So we have the org chart from your HR system, we have the people, we have the roles, we have the job descriptions and all of that. But then, just as important, we can upload the strategy documents so we can see what you would like to achieve. And if you're in a transformation, that is even more important. So strategy, any kind of vision documents that you have will help us to design this target operating model. Anything that you have on your current people, and we complement it by a survey, that will help to create a snapshot of your current situation. And then the tool uses publicly available information on best practices, AI powered, to do the transformation roadmap.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the for me, I kind of get excited about this tool because it just almost sort of lifts the lid a little bit of what the future of organization design is going to look like. And if you start extrapolating of the potential of this particular tool and other generative AI tools that you can work with, you start thinking, hang on, if we've got all our data streaming real time or near real time to some type of digital twin, what does that allow us to do? It allows us to then, you can even have the generative AI triggering particular actions as it sees things evolving so that you can become an increasingly agile organization. So you end up becoming what I start calling about or titling an OD observatory. So that's organization design observatory, one that is constantly monitoring the organization to ensure that it's aligned to its strategic intents and constantly feeding information to the necessary people to say things are going off kilter here. Here's a suggested idea of what we need to do. And then that allows org designers to also step back and run simulations of their own, working with their leaders, working with other people to think, okay, well, what happens if we have another pandemic? What happens if there's increased war across Europe? What do we need to do? How's that going to impact my particular department or the agency that I'm on, an arm's length body, or maybe you're a city council, like in the demo that we've shown. And that allows you to get a real sense of what your strategic options are and how you can then create almost a playbook that can help leaders understand, if this happens, then this is what we think we need to do, because that's the best idea at the moment. And then you can still test those in reality. So these are different ways of utilizing it. And I see that organization design is just going to fundamentally change in the near term. I think we've got one more question that we can afford in the time that we've got is, Debbie, do you want to come off mute? Do you want to share? Otherwise, I'll just read it off the chat, which is, what happens if your job family architecture is non-existent or the data on the HR system is extremely poor? So bad data, really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Debbie. It's I can see you can't get off mute, but I want to thank you for this question. You're not alone. This we see across the board in many organizations, and this is where AI can really help. So it complements the information that is available. So you're talking specifically about the job family architecture. Now, that's related to the functions that the organization should be able to perform based on the mission. Now, if you have a complete job family architecture, we'll use it. But if you don't, we generate it in the organizational digital twin based on best practices. So one of the side effects is that you might end up with also your job family architecture very quickly through a system like this. It still requires, of course, the human intelligence and the human judgment, like how you want it. But it really goes quick to complement information that's not existing. We also see sometimes that that other aspects of data it's not complete or it's even wrong. So data cleansing is a big thing where AI can help.
We think there's 6 things you really need to pay attention to. And there may not be all the 6 things, but we think these are the critical 6 things that you must pay attention to. And of course, as we've said all the way through, organization design is rooted in strategy. And so you need to be really clear, what is your strategy? What are your objectives? And start thinking about what potential use cases you could be thinking about. This could range from content generation, customer service automation. It may be about data and analytics or something else. And then think about where you're going to start that pilot project. Rather than a full-scale transformation, start by integrating AI into one area of the organization. This could, again, be customer service, or maybe it's workforce planning, as some people have started asking about, or a specific operational process, maybe case management of some sort. Engagement. You cannot engage people enough. And AI is not just a top-down initiative. You really need to engage people from the outset. In many large organizations, they've deliberately bought every employee a Copilot license. And I know across the civil service, there's about 20,000 Copilot licenses that have been bought and distributed across various departments for people to experiment and to learn from. And it's the same idea. You want people to start getting used to working with AI, understand its capabilities, and just let 1,000 flowers bloom in some respects. This builds trust and reduces resistance to change. It allows some of those AI solutions that are being designed to have the real user needs in mind. Then focus on data quality. And there's probably two parts to this. There's the old saying about rubbish in, rubbish out, and the same with everything. And Tim, you just talked a bit about that as well. But if you can, where you can, really clean up your data, get high quality, reliable data that your AI can draw from, or use. Maybe that's the pilot project. You start off creating an AI to help cleanse the data so that you then can move forward with that. And the other thing to think about, in addition to data management, good governance around that, is also around the computing power and the infrastructure that's required for that. Now, most organizations, I think, are outsourcing to various AI providers, whether it's like ChatGPT or AWS or Gemini or one of the many others. But if you're creating it internally and you need your own infrastructure, then of course that requires a fair amount of computing power and the various resources that go with that. And so that just has to be thought about in line with your business strategy. Embrace a culture of continuous learning. Every organization, even without AI, is continuously learning and should be continuously learning, because we're always being impacted by various things. We're constantly evolving, whether it's planned or unplanned, we're constantly changing. And so organizations need to continuously learn, and so does the culture of the organization, the people of the organization. So don't just throw AI models into your workplace. Be thoughtful, be intentional. That's one of the things I talk about in my org design courses. Organization design is all about intentionality. So create that culture of continuous learning where employees are encouraged to upskill and adopt new AI tools. Offer training sessions, workshops, opportunities for employees to work with the various technologies. And then lastly is partner with AI specialists like ourselves. Just think about AI can be really complex, and having the right experience is critical. Partner with people who can help create that compelling vision with you. This is a human-centered organization design process that's supercharged by AI. So build that into your operating model and to think about how that can maximize the value creation, align your organizational goals to create that meaningful, stimulating work for you and your people.